Going to review rounding on a number line in case you were absent or you needed a little boost. Remember that rounding on a number line is standard 4, numbers in base 10, standard 3, and I'm not sure what's happening to the screen right now. We use it because it's an estimation strategy, which we'll look at several times in class and find some real life examples. But right now I just want to do a little nitty gritty on what we covered in class. So let's say that we have the number 3,217. And we see that the 2 is underlined, or we are being asked to round to the hundreds spot. The first thing we do is we just sketch our number line. And remember, that's just a straight line, arrows, and we always want to put a mark for both endpoints and the midpoint. Now, since I'm looking at the hundreds spot, that means anything to the left is going to stay the same. So I'm looking at 3,217, and I want to find the numbers that this falls between. So I know 3,217 is going to fall between 3,200 and 3,300. And the reason that we do that, anything to the left stays the same. The lower value is whatever the underlined digit is, and the higher value is one more than that underlined digit. It's never going to go lower than the underlined digit, and it's never going to go higher than 2 more than the underlined digit. So 3,217 falls between 3,200 and 3,300. Now I want to look at the midpoint. And the midpoint is the middle, the exact middle of these two numbers. And since we're hundreds, I know that half of 100 is 50. So the midpoint here is going to be 3,250. Okay. Now the next thing I do is I have to figure out where on my number line the 3,217 will fall. That helps me see if it's closer to 3,200 or 3,300. So I use the midpoint. In the midpoint specifically, I'm looking at the two numbers to the right of that underlined value. So up here in the number, it's 17. In my midpoint, it's 50. So is 17 greater than 50 or less than 50? Well, I sure hope you are saying it is less than 50. So my 3,217 is going to go actually really, really close to the 3,200, definitely to the left of that midpoint, which tells me that 3,217 is about the same as 3,200. That's our estimate. This wavy equal sign tells us about, or tells us that we're estimating. So I'd like to do a couple more here. The first one we'll look at, let's go for a bigger number. So let's go with 43,786. And this time we are going to round to the nearest thousands spot. So again, sometimes it is underlined, sometimes our directions just tell us the spot. In this case, let's go ahead and identify which one the thousands is. My thousands is that one right there, and currently has a 3 there. So 3,000. I want to put my two endpoints in a midpoint. Anything to the left stays the same. The underlined digit stays the same. Everything else turns into a 0. So my low estimate is 43,000, and one more 1,000 is 44,000. So those are my two endpoints. I know that this number falls between 43,000 and 44,000. My midpoint, I know that half of 1,000 is 500. So my midpoint's going to be 43,500. The next thing I have to do is figure out where on the number line my 43,786 falls. And that's where I'm looking at those last three digits. And I'm comparing 786 to 500. I know that 786 is greater than 500. So it's going to fall on this side of the number line, which tells me that it's closer to 44,000. So I know that 43,786 to the nearest thousand is about 44,000. And we'll do one more. And this time we'll stick with a nice big number. So this time we're going to look at 716,852, and we're going to round to the nearest 10,000. The same process happens no matter how big or small my number is. So I draw the number line. I'm going to have two endpoints and a midpoint. To figure out the endpoints, I'm looking at my underlined digit, or the number that I'm rounding to. I'm rounding to the nearest 10,000. So this is 71 to the left. So I've got 716,852. I'm keeping the 71. Everything else turns into a 0. And down here, one more 10,000 would be a 72, and everything else turns to a 0. So my original number falls between 710,000 and 720,000. The midpoint, I need to think about half of 1,000. Half of 1,000 is 500. And I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong, I always want a 5 there. So I'm looking at half of 10,000, not half of 1,000. I'm sorry about that. So I've got 716,852, and I'm comparing it to 715,000. And I hope again that you're seeing that as kind of, oh, it's one more 1,000. So I see that 716,000 is going to fall to the right of the midpoint. And when it falls to the right of the midpoint, it takes the higher value. So I know 716,852 is about the same as 720,000. Session 3 of lesson 3 has a lot of practice on this. There's a teacher assigned within iReady, and you can look back at any notes that we took in class, but I hope that this helps you a little bit.